Thanks, Jenna. Bartley Kives from the Winnipeg Free Press joining us this morning to talk about a couple big issues. And we've been talking a whole lot of audits lately. And now we have the third one, the police headquarters, which turned up a lot more than we initially thought.
Well, yes. I mean, there was this fear that this third city audit into the Winnipeg Police Headquarters project, which is a project that went from being $135 million to $210 million. Yeah. The belief that was because it was that quickie audit, they were basically given 6 months to do it. It wouldn't be as interesting or as in-depth as the real estate audit or the fire paramedic station review. But no, it turned out that, hey, surprise, surprise, city officials didn't follow processes. They kept things from council, namely like what was going on with the cost overruns. And, you know, there were nuggets like police officers with no project management training in charge of the project. And some things we really knew, like the entire construction model, didn't really work, and they kept changing it, and as a result they essentially the city ended up with a huge mess on their hands. So the real question is, after a fire paramedic review that we saw back in the fall, and after the real estate audit we saw 2 weeks ago, and after this one, what happens next? Manitoba Justice is looking into some aspects of the real estate review. There are calls for a provincial inquiry into anything. So most of the mayoral candidates are walking around largely not talking about any of this, and like, it's the middle of the summer, so the real question is Winnipeg as a community content to simply let all this go by and sort of just go, nothing to see here? You know, people like the Premier have said next to nothing. People like the opposition leader have said next to nothing. The police chief has said next to nothing.
That is interesting, and it doesn't seem to be anybody who wants to speak about it or any sort of the issues.
Well, can you imagine? It's this big, festering, gaping wound in the city right now, and everyone's like, oh, wow, I think you stubbed your toe. That big, huge head wound you've got there. It's kind of interesting what, if anything, will actually come about now that a lot of information is out there and a lot of what has been reported previously has been confirmed by outside eyes.
Okay, so it's 3 audits now.
3 audits.
All with some flaws within them.
Well, yeah, all found serious flaws. Yeah, serious errors in process at the city. And in some cases worse, like in this particular one, there were issues in the way more than $100 million in construction contracts were handed out.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about the PST, because it seems to be something that we've been talking about for more than a year now, and it was just recently in court.
Yes, and the opposition Tories want you to be talking about this for more than a year. They want to raise this issue. They want Manitobans to remain angry enough about the PST increase up until the next election, and to that extent, keeping it out in the public realm. They have succeeded in that. As for a court challenge, they lost, and they lost big, but this is of no surprise, because when you have legislation that says no future government can do anything different, courts are gonna not look very fondly upon that. Manitoba, the NDP right now have passed legislation that basically prevents any future government from selling off Manitoba Hydro without a referendum. That really wouldn't fly either. If somebody tried to have a court challenge, if some future government chose actually to sell Manitoba Hydro. So this notion that you let governments actually have the power to simply say nothing can ever be done again on a certain file, no, that doesn't happen. That won't fly. So they have lost big on this one, but it was really no surprise. Now the Tories are saying, no, we didn't know we would lose. It's a bit disingenuous. They knew they would lose, but they have won in the sense that we're still talking about this.
Keeping it at the forefront, yeah.
And a tax increase is something simple for Manitobans for voters to wrap their brains around. A tax increase, more money out of my pocket. Therefore, election comes next, who knows?
Yeah, it hits them directly, and of course the Tories promising that they will lower it again. That's also keeping it up there. But yeah, thank you so much, Bartley. Look forward to having you back in a couple weeks.
Absolutely.
Thanks. More BT. Stay with us.